Welcome to the Mother Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Sylvia. On this podcast, we talk about all things motherhood and wellness, from mental health, maternal health, parenting tips and tricks, and many, many more. Stay tuned for our current episode. Hi there, Sylvia here, the host of the Mother Wellness Podcast. Welcome and thank you for joining me today. Today I wanted to come on here and share my story with regards to my journey of motherhood and wellness. So, the reason I started this podcast, the Mother Wellness Podcast, was because of my experiences with mental health issues before and after pregnancy and following childbirth. So, my mental health issues, I would say, stemmed from having my first daughter at 35 weeks unexpectedly. The pregnancy itself from 20 weeks onwards was difficult physically. First of all, because I was commuting from one city to another on the motorway every day for the first 6 months of the pregnancy. And then apart from that, I also had a condition called pelvic girdle pain, which was known as SPD, which is symbiotic pubic pain, pubic disorder, which is essentially when the hip joint kind of softens during pregnancy, which then ends up causing it to rub together and leads to a lot of pain. So that made walking quite difficult, going up and down the stairs, managing in and out of the bath, just the normal everyday activities that we all take for granted, quite difficult. So there was that physical aspect. That was the main issue I had during the pregnancy. My scans all perfectly fine. No abnormalities showed up. So when I started having contractions at 35 plus 4, of 8 minutes apart, I decided to call the maternity assessment unit, and they told me to take painkillers for an hour. If it didn't ease, to call back. It didn't ease. Went home, had dinner, had a shower, and ended up going to hospital. Leaving the house about 10 p.m. I was assessed at midnight, and I was told I was 1 centimetre dilated. Very lucky at the time that they actually kept me in overnight instead of sending me home. So I managed to stay in hospital on one of the wards. I think one of the wards that you go to after you have a baby. There was literally nobody else. I was the only one in the 6 cubicle ward, which was nice. Fortunately, woke up at 6 a.m. the next morning. Vomited all the food I'd had the night before. That's when my labour went into full force, and my daughter was born at 10 a.m. So this was on Tuesday morning. Following her birth, she received light therapy, and we subsequently stayed in hospital for 3 days so that they could check on her. We managed to return home on the Friday, and unfortunately 2 days later on the Sunday, my daughter wasn't eating very well, and we ended up back in hospital again for a flight of the 5 days. So for the first 10 days of her life, she had been in hospital for 8 days. 8 out of 10 days of being alive were spent in hospital. And I didn't realise it at the time, but I believe that, I found that experience quite traumatic. First of all, her birth, coming at 35 weeks, and I was totally unprepared. I was just going to start my maternity leave at work, and I didn't even get to have my 3 weeks that built up off. I had to go straight into maternity leave. And then secondly, the fact that we had to stay in hospital for so many days, 8 out of the first 10 days of her life, that was quite stressful and traumatic as well. I didn't recognise this at the time, and so I didn't really talk about it. Didn't let my church community know for about the first 2 weeks that she was actually born. Nobody knew. And because I found it so hard and so difficult to deal with the fact that she'd come early, and even though she's now 7 years old, I still remember the feelings very strongly. At that time, I wasn't aware that there were maternity debriefs. I'm not sure whether it was available in 2014. However, I don't remember having any conversations with anybody about the birth experience. The main thing they said was they couldn't really explain it because there were no signs whatsoever to suggest why she came early. And when she was born, because she was born 5 weeks early, she was small. I'm guessing, I don't think she would have been much more than 6 pounds, if I'm honest. I think she was going to always be a small baby. She was about 4.5 pounds. So that's small in itself. And there was a lot of reference to her being small, which I believe caused a lot of anxiety for me. And subsequently, I think I experienced postnatal anxiety, but however, I wasn't aware of this at the time. I went back to work at 6 months, and when my daughter turned 1, I was diagnosed with depression. And because she had just turned 1, it wasn't diagnosed as postnatal depression. However, I believe that it was. So many years has passed since I had my first child. It was mostly natural birth with forceps. So, I didn't have it was mostly natural birth. And my second daughter was also born naturally. And I was monitored. I had extra scans because of my first daughter coming early. So I got to see my daughter more. And the pregnancy itself, the same situation happened with the pelvic girdle pain. Exactly the day I hit 20 weeks, the pain started again. I ended up using crutches for the last 4 weeks of the pregnancy because it was so difficult to walk while I was pregnant with my second daughter. And the labour wasn't very long. It wasn't too bad. However, when she was born, she came out really quickly and she wasn't crying initially. I went completely numb, and I don't think it lasted more than a minute or two. I just noticed that a lot of doctors came round, and I think within a minute or two they managed to get her to breathe. I think she just came out really quickly, and that's why she wasn't breathing. I was just completely numb, and I don't think I've really talked about that experience. But she was born at 41 weeks, my second daughter, so it was fine in that sense. But I think it was just that brief moment that I think I found that quite traumatic. Even though I was numb and I didn't really react, for me, that moment of her not crying immediately coming out of the womb was traumatic for me. And I have not really talked about it much. However, I recognise the importance of speaking out about a birth experience, and trauma can just be a tiny portion. Birth trauma can occur because of a small portion of time during the perinatal period or the pregnancy period. So from conception all the way to birth, it could be one appointment that that didn't quite go as you expected. It could be the way the birth went. It could be any point in time. Trauma is trauma if you believe it's traumatic. It's as simple as that. And I think it's important to not downplay people's experiences, and this is why I'm so passionate about being a maternal wellness coach and consultant, because I believe that women deserve the opportunity to speak about their birth experiences, whether it was traumatic or not. I just want to give them a platform to just talk about their birth experience. Just, what they want to get done. People talk about the birth plan. I'm an advocate for a post-birth plan. And to really have women, the mothers or mothers to be prepare as much as you possibly can. Also emotionally preparing and preparing practically. I'm absolutely an advocate for making sure the baby's room is ready and getting things ready for baby. However, I also believe that mother is really important, and I also want to focus on her and her needs and the support that she will require, the practical support, the emotional support, and also the information support, resources, organizations that she can go to, a list of numbers that we can potentially get ready, so that when there are issues coming up, she knows where she can go, which organization or which health professional that she can turn to for support. So I'm an advocate for, looking holistically at the person's life. As an occupational therapist by profession, it's something that I've been trained to do, and I am both physical and mental health trained. So I do naturally look at every aspect of the person's life, their activities and their physical environment, and the impact that it's having on them and their lifestyle and the quality of life that they have. And I share my story to kind of highlight that even though I'm a health professional and I have the knowledge, I didn't necessarily recognize when I had maternal mental health issues in myself. And I've also realised that because of the birth experiences that I had with my children, that I have also got a fear of childbirth or pregnancy, which is known as Tokophobia. I will put it in the show notes. And it's something that I recognised I had when I was, because I like to follow other maternal health or motherhood Instagram pages. I recognised that I had the symptoms of tokophobia based on my own and experiences, and so that is something that I'm going to be seeking support for as well. I hope that me sharing my story helps you to get to know me. So I'm going to be having guests, and I'm going to be having episodes where I speak alone about a topic that comes up, and also speaking with guests about motherhood, wellness, and anything in between. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the Mother Wellness Podcast. If the episode topic resonated with you, feel free to contact me if you'd like any support or further advice or information about the services from the Mother Wellness OT company. My email is motherwellnessot@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can send me a message on Instagram at motherwellness.ot or on Facebook also at motherwellness.ot. Thank you for listening. Bye.